I'm Harry Bowditch, and this is the SocialCode Cyber Swing. Just had Lee McWhorter in, seasoned CTO, CISO, Texas Cyber Summit guest speaker, and all-round cyber guru. We were talking about the development of AI in cyber and what that means for the people in cyber, the tips from the top from Lee himself, and other hot talking points. Lee, it's a pleasure having you on, mate. Very excited to have you here at St Andrews in Scotland, mate. Been waiting for this for a while. And yeah, look, let's get to it. But I suppose, look, it'd be good to get a bit of a rundown on, what is your background, within the cyberspace so far, and, what have you been up to over the last 10 years in it or longer?
Well, 10 years is a good date for really getting into cyber. Technically, it's kind of a full circle thing for me. I started off as a young kid, curious hacker, good kid.
Yeah.
Didn't do anything bad, but and then I went to school for other things, but rapidly got back into tech.
Yeah.
And the web really changed my life when Tim Berners-Lee put out the web proposal. I thought that was going to change the world. It changed mine. I wrote a lot of websites, made a lot of money doing that. But then I'm protecting it, not from kids.
It's protecting it from all sorts now. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's the last 10, 12 years I've been doing cyber pretty exclusively.
Over the last, 5 years, what is the main change you've seen? I suppose with AI coming into the whole concept over the last two years, what does that mean to you, and where do you see things going in the cyberspace because of that?
I actually gave a talk at Texas Cyber. We missed each other.
Yes, we did.
But it was called Holistic Security's Dead, Long Live Holistic Security. And the whole gist of that is to basically, there we go. Now maybe
there we are.
It was that even though we've been spending the last, I don't know, dozen plus 24 years trying to get to a holistic security model, the idea is that we already need to go to like holistic security 2.0 or 3.0 maybe, because we still have some companies that haven't integrated physical and cyber, and the world is changing like with AI. Yeah. So I used an example of the classic hack in the day was call somebody, hey, Harry, I'm with your IT team, man. Something's wrong with your system. I got to get you in. Can I talk you out of your password, right? So, but how about today? I am your IT guy. You know me.
Yeah.
I happen to play Call of Duty. The hackers have got my face. They've got my voice. And they set up a Zoom with you. Hey, Harry, how you doing, man? It's Lee. I need your password.
Yeah.
How do you face that one? And that just happened to $500,000 Hong Kong at the end of the year last year, 3 months after I said it. They basically were telling a guy, new CFO, needs you to transfer $500,000. He was suspicious. They set up a whole Zoom, 4 people in the Zoom meeting he knew, all faked. And the CFO was faked from the beginning, and he transferred $500,000.
And he was faked what? Through the concept of AI regenerating their visuals of their face?
Yeah, they created those, they captured voices, they got faces.
Wow.
You need a few pictures to put a face on any kind of body nowadays.
I mean, the extent people are going to now, like the capabilities of these hackers is just, beyond belief in what they can do now and what they can recreate to get the information they need.
Well, it's just all social engineering. So, the biggest, most people out there think that it's some hooded guy in the basement.
Yeah.
And occasionally that does happen. But more times than not, it's automated bots, so AI is going to help with that. But, AI is not going to totally change things. One of the things that's happened throughout the whole history I've been in this space is the idea that every time there's something new, we think it's going to save the day.
Yeah.
It's not, because they use it too. And I tell my students all the time, the only difference between us and the bad guys is we have permission. So we do the same things. And so it's interesting to see how it changes the space. But so far, all it does is just continue the cat and mouse game.
Yeah. I mean, it's just an ever-changing space. I mean, with this protocol's coming out every 2-3 months, it's just an ever-changing landscape. But I mean, do you think the fact that all these AI hacks are out now increases the need for cyber people, or do you think it's just going to increase the need for an alternative AI to battle these people? Because I suppose whatever new comes out is just a new leverage for them to use. So do you think
it's a little too early to tell? I think right now AI is going to be, if anything, a positive gain for our space, because while AI can help automate finding anomalies and different things, nice one.
On the dance floor,
at least we're on the big green, right? So it's going to still require a lot of people
Yeah.
to figure out if that's really a positive, because you got to sort out, like we have for years, the false positives and
Yeah.
false negatives and all that kind of stuff.
And what type of cyber people do you think are most pivotal to, kind of battling those things in terms of, is it like IAM people? Is it pen testers? What is the best protocol if you're a company that's experiencing, cyber hacks or anything like that from an AI space? What do you need to protect that, would you say? What is the most, or is it a mixture of,
It's
everything?
a mixture. It's the biggest thing we do. The joke is that it's not a matter of when,
Yeah.
not if, but when. And so the biggest thing you can do is layer defenses. Nothing has changed.
Yeah.
There was a whole debate a few years ago on social media about, will AI save us? I'm like, no, because they'll use it too.
Yeah.
So it's just this game. But so that means we've got to get people to be smarter and a lot more training with the staff, because that kind of thing there.
Yeah.
What do? He set up a Zoom.
Yeah. No,
You know what I mean?
I've never heard of
So
anything
you've
like
got
that.
to have protocols in place, new policies of, if you have any suspicion, like one of my mantras, you can cut it out if you have to, but don't click shit. Simple number one rule. That's the biggest way hacks happen. Somebody clicks something they weren't supposed to. So we've been training that for years. But now, how do you verify that? You got to get off the phone and call one of those people in a meeting and say, do we just have a Zoom?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because if we didn't, then, okay, that was all an elaborate fake, right?
Believe it's you again, sir. 34 away. Be gentle with her.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, it's a little closer this time. Still getting used to the simulator here. I like Tiger Woods golf. I'm quick. So, one of those.
That'll do.
That looked a little better, I hope. Oh!
Ooh,
Not bad.
we'll take it. We're in the mix. Stay on. Oof, that's
I
rough.
think one of the biggest things that's going to impact us is, and we've been seeing it in the whole space of jobs, if you will, the economy, is that you need to, soft skills are becoming more and more important.
Yeah.
We've got to continue to break that stereotypical mold of cyber people being socially awkward people.
Yeah.
You got to be able to talk to people. One of the biggest things you got to do in this world is keep a good relationship with your staff. You can't live in your little ivory tower.
Yeah.
And just play with your toys and blinky lights. Because if accounting doesn't like you, and Sally in accounting clicks something or has that happen, she's going to lunch.
Yeah.
If she likes you and knows how important it is that we protect the thing together, then she'll call you, and you're complimenting her for doing it while you're unplugging accounting from the network and hopefully saving the day.
As you say, it's very important that everyone in the business is quite well versed of the dangers of it.
The threat landscape is ever evolving, that is for sure. Maybe too much.
Ooh.
Yeah, kind of felt like it.
Yeah, the Greens are pretty unforgiving on here. And from like a CTO and CISO perspective, how important is it, would you say, to have a very hands-on and in the know-how of everything that's going on within the business, from engineers and analysts upwards in the cyberspace? How are you someone that likes to be very hands-on within the process, or are you very sure that the whole team is ad hoc enough to have their?
I have lots of training mantras and phrases. One of them is, I say, go walk about. Because if you don't go out and see what people are doing in your actual organization, then how do you know everything's really working? A classic example is, kind of IT supposedly would like a 256 character password that we change every 5 minutes.
Yeah.
We want to be able to type 1, 2, 3, 4. So we end up, based on our security policies and threat comfort, picking a password policy. But if it's too complex, still, you're going to walk around and find Post-it notes all over the place. Are people sharing passwords or whatever? If you don't go make sure you're hands-on and walk about. I tell people, if you're not looking at your logs, you're not doing your job. If you're not aware of everything going on in your environment, the biggest single way you can find things, and the biggest failures, in my opinion, that companies do sometimes, from, I won't name names, but, they don't realize it's there for so many months. They don't realize they're already in.
Yeah.
They've been in for 3 months. And that layer of defense needs to be there. And you need to be aware of anything that's deviating from your baselines.
Yeah.
Especially in this day and age.
Someone starting at the bottom in the cyberspace, what would you recommend getting into for a junior person? Whether it's, what certifications to acquire, whether they should be more on the GRC side. Is there any specific areas that you would say would be a bit of a hot commodity for people now, and, tip from the top?
Well, I tend to be a holistic approach of lots of things. So whether your specialty later is going to be any of those, it's not too far. Is it? Oh, it's not detectable.
Yeah, I think roll it forward a little.
There we go. you need to know kind of both sides. Maybe too much again. Oh, not enough. Go down the hill.
I should get her in range though for to move on. Yeah,
it's kind of hard to judge the swing.
Yeah, there's a lot certain line that shows up to follow.
But yeah, like I teach. If you're want to be a pen tester or the blue team, I teach both.
Yeah,
you know, one to do the other, right?
And how important in this current market would you say it is, or valuable to gain? Like, is it the OSCPF certification?
Well, once again, it depends on. I recommend, and admittedly I'm a shell of them, but CompTIA Security Plus is consistently ranked in the top 3 cyber certs on jobs.
Yeah,
it's a good entry cert, and then you can decide: do you want to go, pen testing and Pen Test Plus and OCP and all these others? Do you want to go others that are blue team certs? Do you want to be forensics? Do you want to be whatever? Cloud certs.
Yeah.
Amazon security certs.
GCP is very popular right now.
Very popular and one of the top rated. There is one misnomer, especially beginning, a lot of people, and that's still something we're working on in the industry. But the idea that, cybersecurity jobs, come on, baby.
That should be it. Oh, she's being cruel.
That should happen, isn't it?
Should let us move on nearly to there.
I'm now focused on this darn shot here. Right? I'm starting to embarrass myself too long. But the CISSP is a great little cert. I hit it wrong to the right, but it's mainly for management. It's not a technical cert. And sometimes there'll be a job, entry-level cyber, 5 years of experience in the CISSP for $80,000. Well, that's not going to happen.
Yeah,
that's just not possible.
No, of course.
Everybody's got to still continue. But I think you get the basic ones, and then you figure out based on your interest and where you're going.
We're no longer on that green anymore.
I'll let you do that then. But the other thing is, I think my biggest key things, I keep saying it seems in post and talks and everything else, is get hands-on yourself as a learner.
Yeah.
Whatever program you do, self-paced, on your own, college, in between, make sure that there's hands-on. Make sure that there is.
Come across.
There was a little more left.
A little bit rough, yeah.
They get mean once you get off of them pretty quick out of here. They give you a nice bride berth, and then they're mean. But get involved in capture the flag. I don't know.
And for anyone that doesn't know what capture the flag would be,
so CTS. So like we played as a kid, go capture that hill and play paintball gun.
Yeah.
In computing, there's a couple different variants, but the most common is what we call a boot to root system. It's a VM usually. You boot it up and you start trying to hack it, and you scan it and check it out the ports, and you go see all the services. And you check out the version, see if there's vulnerables.
So you're trying to compromise the domain then, essentially? Or?
It may be a Windows domain. It could be set up like a server. So it's web and email and DNS and all that kind of stuff, right, for a company. I always have my beginning students play them because so many recruiters and employers sort of look at it as a proxy because you're doing the real things that you do if you're a pen tester or if you're working on scanning and checking out the vulnerabilities on a network. But then I have my intermediate advanced students build them because that shows another level. But the whole idea of getting hands-on, build your own home lab, which you can get cheap equipment online sometimes, or better yet, just virtualization. I love a program called GNS3. It's an open source graphic network simulator. I build them for the various cyber programs I've built. Whole 15 node network, that is right there. It's real. It's all Docker containers and mini VMs. And then you can have routers and switches and DMZs and everything. And so we talk to employers about that, helps give you that edge. And it also, you've got that hands-on. You're not just looking at slides and reading the book.
Yeah. From a pen testing standpoint, compromising the domain, what looks like a good percentage of compromising the domain to you for those out there? Because I suppose that everyone has a different percentile. And what would you say from that security standpoint is, a successful amount? Obviously, 100's a very hard approach to handle. So,
yeah. Well, the reality is that it's funny because compromises do happen. I don't know what the best percentage is, but I would say in a way it's somewhat low. It's funny. A good friend of mine, Philip Wiley, he's been a pen tester often in different places, major banks and things like that. And he would tell you the story that, like any other job, a lot of times it's not so fun popping shells.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, that makes sense, because if he is testing a new mobile app or a new web app, or any other pen tester is testing the company's products, if he's popping holes every time they push out a new, that's not good.
That's not good for them. No, that's very true.
Probably not want to work there. So, but on the other hand, if we don't keep that up, that one hole gets by, and then, but of course, the hackers, we all live for popping shells and gaining root access. So, of course, it's the exciting part that we get.
That will do.
Yeah.
Lovely.
So, there's I read once in a book that in under a few minutes, if an unprotected, unpatched machine goes up on the internet, it'll be compromised. I honestly don't believe that is that low.
Yeah.
Because there's just so many devices, so many things to hit. But also, having run servers on the internet, including a small firm now at my house, constantly they're under attack. Constantly, 24/7.
Jesus.
And 99% of it's automated bots that are just
consistently, trying to pluck away
at these different combinations, looking for certain particular responses from a server to know that that's vulnerable or it has that version.
Yeah.
From as simple of, a common thing is that's how spam works in many cases. Besides breaches and things like that, bot networks will just talk to a mail server and pass in a username. If the server asks for a password, they go, good. That's all I wanted to know.
Yeah, perfect.
Now I can send an email there and spam that. They're not even trying, but that's the same principle as the break-in.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I'm curious how AI is going to affect one piece. Because when I started as a kid, or even as a young defender, you were generally coming in from one IP. And many times it would be some kid in the basement. I always joke that every year at Christmas, a new crop of hackers is born. And I have literally for 30 years seen the spike after Christmas.
Yeah.
But
He's solid again.
Starting to get a little more feel.
Yeah. Solid swing.
So it used to be, it was easy. I could literally flood ping some, what I assume was some young kid.
Yeah.
Just flood ping him off the internet because it was one IP and I could just overwhelm him. Today, and of course, defenses like, oh, you tried to log in from the same thing 3 times. Well, we stopped that. It's easy. But what if every one of those million attacks is coming from a different IP? And that's where we've been for a lot of years. So is AI going to even help them mix up their attacks and spread it out more, so you can, once again, we're looking for patterns.
Yeah.
And if they can help them break the patterns, then it may make things easier. But then we'll use the AI to find the new thing. It's just cat and mouse.
Yeah, there's a lot of things to go into that. And if you're a startup company, kind of, you just got your whole site up and everything's up and running, what would be the first protocol you implement from a cyber perspective, for the startups out there that we work with? Obviously, we work with a range of companies, consultancies and startups, but these are the companies and the audience that we want to target and give them that kind of guidance. So what would your standpoint be? What's the first kind of thing you implement from a security standpoint?
Well, I would say to startups, particularly done a few, start with security in mind from the beginning.
Yeah.
What I've seen too often is, okay, Harry, you and I go into business, we start in our garage.
Yeah.
And, we trust each other, so we're going to be admin.
Yeah.
And we hire some other people.
And outsiders.
At some point, you've got to come in and fix all that crazy crap. So just start from the beginning.
Yeah.
No, we don't need to operate as admin, Harry. We have an admin account. We can share the password now because it's just you and I. But at some point, we're gonna think like we're that big company, and go ahead and try to put into place the policies and procedures and the training that will keep us and our people safe. CEOs, I've even fired a company once as a consulting because the CEO wouldn't do what I told him to do.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, hold it. He's like, well, I'm the owner. I get everything. I said, no, you don't. You're not an IT guy. You don't need to have full access to everything.
Yeah.
What you need is a person that you hire that does
dedicated
that.
for that.
They have a copy in the safe of the password in case he gets hit by a bus, until there's enough people that they're redundant within their own organization. But you never need that much access.
Yeah.
You're a target way bigger. Everybody knows your name and email because it's on the website, dude.
Yeah.
Everybody's gunning for you.
And would that be like a GRC kind of person that, helps you do it from that early stage? Because I'm seeing very much a rise in those type of profiles and the need for it now, especially.
Yeah, that's actually really been growing. And I think it's just because we get to live in a more complex world. Government's changing things if you're related to military CMMC.
Yeah.
And it just gets harder and harder to list all the standards and frameworks. Every little company, though, if you take credit cards, you have to follow PCI DSS, payment payment card industry, the digital security standards, basically the credit card standards. And I tell my students that's the barest minimum that every company should have. Because if you don't have separate logins, you don't use encryption, you don't protect those credit cards, they can take away your rights, and now you can't do business.
Yeah.
But that's the barest. You should actually, like I said, as a startup, not just look at, okay, we take credit cards, we have to follow California and GRP, but no, look at the big picture. Where are we going? What market are we going into? And start, well, you don't have to write a 500-page manual when you're 6 people, but you need to think that that's the NIST standard, the CMC. I'm going to be a contractor someday. I'm going to be in the space business, whatever. I'm going to touch those things. So I need to start thinking of those and having those in place from the beginning.
Yeah.
So we're not having to backfill. And if you start that whole culture of security first, and if you're building a product, that's one of the problems with IoT. A lot of IoT companies, baby cams and stuff, they may be tech companies, but they're not really. And they didn't build those products with security. They didn't think long-term patching. And a lot of those products, that's why the hackers have so many millions of bots to use, is they take over all this stuff that's old and vulnerable, and then they'll bounce their attacks
point the fingers around. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And for those who don't really know, in terms of like NIST and HIPAA anyway, what would you say the difference is, and how do you differentiate them, and what are the values of those, I suppose?
Generally speaking, I look at it as there are sort of 2 big sets of frameworks. There is sort of the industry frameworks, and then there's the regulatory ones. And they do, of course, get inspired by the other. But you have to meet your regulatory requirements. And then you should look at what's the best practices within the industry that you're doing. I use the analogy of, if you were going to build a house or maybe write a resume, you're not just going to set down a blank canvas. You're going to look at other houses. You're going to look at other resumes.
Yeah, bit of window shopping.
Take the pieces you like. You're going to build yours. That's what every company needs to do with their cybersecurity policy, is they need to look at all the things they're required to do, all the things they should do, and then put together. Because, in the basic, security is always the trade-off between security and convenience. 17 locks is a pain in the ass, but it's more secure than 1. 256-character passwords are a pain in the ass. They're more secure than a 4-character. And the balance we always have to find is, what is our security situation? What is our risk tolerance? And what is what are we trying to accomplish? And so we try to take the best of what everybody's doing out there.
Yeah.
And you write your own. It's not like you have to follow, in a sense, a particular set of framework. You have to make sure you check the boxes if you're doing DoD work, or you're doing certain work. You're in the financial industry, education, certain things, finance. But once you check those boxes, that's not the minimum. The minimum for credit cards is so many things.
Yeah.
Separate logins, annual training, blah, blah, blah. That's it. But that's to try to keep a mom and pop from at least not just having credit card numbers walk out the door every day. And so that we can't stop. And they shouldn't either. But at least I'm actually glad that's there for the smaller companies.
Yeah.
But for, our audience, your audience, people I work with and consult with and things, that's what they got to do. Just think security from the beginning. And a big part of that's training yourselves to know what you're facing out there, as well as making sure your staff, because they're your first line of defense.
And exactly, that was going to be my next point. You've trained and mentored, as I couldn't even say
part of what I like to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And from a higher up standpoint, what would you say to other leaders out there? Is the best way to train, or any personal advice you would give them, to another senior level and C-suite level people when it comes to training people within this space?
One of the things about training is, when it comes to like the whole company, one is the culture has to be there. Like that CEO who wasn't going to follow, he wanted a short password and all the admin.
Yeah.
No, you've got to lead to help do it from there. And then the other is, I think you've got to find ways to, in my opinion, always, to make training engaging. Some of this, okay, we're going to cover our security awareness training. We check the box of compliance. And it's just, don't do this, and don't, it's like, really tell stories.
Yeah.
Explain why it matters. If Sally in accounting, always my fake made up. Sally in accounting is, once again, not happy with IT, feels like they're getting in the way, then they're not going to take that in. If they feel like, and that's really, our biggest job in cyber and IT is to enable the organizations we work for. We can't get caught up so much in pen testing and our rules and everything else. Our job is to make sure we build those widgets and we sell those products and we sell those services. So if we enable the organization, we run so well, we protect it, but we keep it just unannoying enough so everybody's happy, if you will,
Yeah.
and the balance is there, and everybody likes IT, then you can tell them the stories. You can tell the stories. I've been on assignments where, a company has literally had thousands of machines encrypted, and everybody there is freaking out. Like, are we going to have a job tomorrow? Because most companies in this just-in-time world only have maybe a couple of weeks of cash.
Yeah.
So if you can't get yourself back up
In
and running,
time.
so we run in and try to help clean that up, get them re-imaged and back up. But that happened because somebody clicked something, or that happened because somebody didn't update something. And that's all training. It's all communication. And it's all got to be, you got to get buy-in from everybody. It can't just be, bad.
Yeah.
Explain why. You don't want to lose your job, right? We like working here. We do cool things. We sell cool products. We want to keep that.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Save us a lot of money.
Yeah. All right. 170 from the pin, Lee. Let's see what we got in there.
Let's see. Go too much left. We have been hitting the rough a lot on this round, haven't we?
Not a bad lie though. Still, this.
Not bad.
Well, yeah, 121. Oof. And now story time, Lee. What is the biggest freak of a cyber attack that you've experienced over your many years? I'm sure there's some horror stories that you've got to tell us and share.
What is the biggest, weirdest? I would say one of the most interesting that can be told in a reasonable amount of time. One of the best ones would be a longer thing, and then a couple I couldn't talk about. Let's put it that way. So, but one of the ones is I was brought in once to help a mid-sized company, family-owned for all practical purposes, formed as a corp, yada yada, 100 employees plus, so nothing teeny.
Yeah.
And I really did this whole investigation of what happened to them, because they had had money transferred out of their account, $5,000 a day for multiple days. And if the attackers hadn't gotten greedy, they might have got away with more, but they went for 20 after a period of time. And that flagged the bank and all this stuff. And I got brought in to help them out. They became the client that I still have to this day. And, but anyway, long story short, there's a group somewhere over there, Eastern Europe, Russia, former Russia, Soviet Union, whatever, seems to have some ties to Romania. To be honest, these guys are scary because of how quiet and how focused they are. They attack mid-market companies because they don't want to mess with little bitty that doesn't have anything. They don't want to mess with the big boys who have
everything
to defend. And so they mess with these guys, and they particularly do their research. So, and this is not an uncommon model. Here's a family-owned company. Maybe the owner is the husband and wife's the CEO, CFO. This was the case in this company. He's also on boards because he's a wealthy contributor to local economy. So he's on like a horse society or something, whatever. And he was. And they attacked that nonprofit, which has no defense. Totally own this place. But you would never know it.
Yeah.
And then are reading his email because, like a lot of people, if you don't have the right policies, or like that CEO, he really wasn't, didn't matter which account he was logged into.
Wasn't too diligent. Yeah.
Or the work account as to what he was sending. So he was very clear. He sent communications. And they also were watching how, and I've seen this happen in other places in LA, with very wealthy people, where they literally are copying the way they type, all caps or whatever, how they scream, using pet names for internal. So they're watching a conversation between these two, the owner, his wife, and the owner about spring break, and that's when they attack. So they send an email from that compromised nonprofit, his account. This is not spoof, it's his account.
Oh, wow.
Which, she's used to. And it just says, and he sends a lot of messages with nothing in the body. So they have vacation ? And an attached image. Resort.jpg. But it's really space, lay off the screen, .exe.
Yeah.
And she runs it and nothing happens. And remember earlier I talked about any deviations? If you double click on a PDF or a Word doc or an image and it doesn't launch in the thing you expect it to, it doesn't do anything at all, that's a sign of compromise. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
so
red flag 101.
She's like, oh, I'll ask him about that later, and forgets. That's a Trojan. They're in her machine. So for every night for whatever, 4 or 5 days, they're using her machine, her credentials, her login, her cookies, and they're transferring to a prepaid credit card $5,000 a night, which they pay half their staff that way. So nothing unusual.
Yeah.
Except for the timing and things. But then they try the 20 and it gets, things. Just to finish about how cryptic, how precise these guys are. I by interviewing, figure out that's the weird thing that's happened.
Yeah.
I get that email off of their cloud servers. I set up a whole virtual environment, sandbox, and I infect the machine. And 2 days later, that virus is gone with nothing happening. I'm like, what? Oh, maybe it was a date. Let's set the dates back to when the attack, and I do it again, nothing happens. I ultimately had to use Social Engineering Toolkit and clone the Chase Bank's site, set up a virtual web server inside of the sandbox environment, set up DNS to fake it. So from this machine, I then on the third attempt infected the machine and recreated what she did. Went to Chase, logged in. Boy woke up and started doing his thing. And I'm like, so they were so focused on what they do, very particular MO of how they do it. And you might have had the virus on your machine, and since you never logged into a commercial bank account, it went away because they don't want to be found. So that's a really interesting kind of story, and how creative some of these.
I was about to say, as you say, to the untrained eye, just the matter of it, like you say, jumping onto a PDF or a Word and double clicking it and nothing happens. I mean, to the untrained eye, you wouldn't blink twice to that, and it means nothing to you. Maybe my computer's buffering or something slow. Not that that's the outcome of it. And like I say, I think that reiterates the importance of everyone within the business and even outside of it, just knowing the basics and really having a lower level security background, just to know what's going on and engaging in those sessions with yourself.
Yeah, but like if you tell your staff these kinds of stories, then they see why don't click shit matters. They see why they know before Zoom phishing simulations, why you're doing that. But if you just do that and it's an annoyance to your staff, then you're really setting yourself up for failure.
They're just disregarding it right off the bat.
They're not memorizing it, they're not personalizing it, and it's not part of your culture. The most secure companies have a secure mindset.
Yeah. Wow. Where would you foresee the biggest growth being needed at the moment, really, in the current climate?
I feel like to a degree, a piece of it is that we just need to fill the back hole.
Yeah.
There's been these rounds of layoffs, and I've known, people that have done it, but unlike, say, other, true downturns in a sense, they've seemed to land jobs pretty quickly because there's so much pent up demand. We'll work through some of that. But depending on which reports you read, there's some 300 plus 500,000 unfilled cyber jobs. Wow, what are we doing?
There is a huge need out there at the moment, especially for talented. Obviously, the TSSCI market as well, the people with clearances, there's a ever ongoing need for them, especially being on site as well. I think that's where I see the most requirements now, but obviously that's a very niche space in itself. Good shots, just a little. Yeah, it's just
on the other side. This is not.
But you've obviously worked with a lot of people with clearances itself. How is that process? I only ever really hear horror stories. Obviously, I do a lot in the TSSCI space, and obtaining a clearance just seems, near enough impossible sometimes these days, especially with time frames and just what's needed.
Joining the military, does seem to be a pain sometimes. It's not. I'm not exactly sure why, though. I get top secret clearance, security checks. I've had to be interviewed for students or whatever that were trying to get them a couple times.
Yeah.
Or certain jobs. And so that's always interesting to see those background checks. But could they speed it up? They seem like they have a lot of demand there.
Yeah.
And even the military folks, if they don't find something rapidly after they leave, then it expires. So I don't know. That's something I actually would say, since you work in this space, I'd almost ask back, what can the companies do more? Because I know they can sponsor people. Is there?
So essentially that
work with educators to get some of our students.
I know companies and obviously the government sponsor it themselves. I know the cost to it, but it's obviously just a lot of companies don't want to go through the whole waiting process of not having someone with an active clearance, because obviously that can take 8 months, and obviously in the contracting and the contingent workforce kind of field, time is everything. Obviously you're working on deliverables and you need people to come in, and waiting 8 months might have more cost than actually getting someone with an active clearance and just having someone ready there.
Industry to fight against each other for the same. Oh, nice.
Oh, unkind to me, the Greens.
It's hard to read them a little bit.
Yeah, it's not an easy lie there. Right, let's.
If companies, it's all regulation, I guess, or their own policies, and some of them in that space are pretty big and maybe even bureaucratic. But can they train people and get them to do pieces? And so we subdivide some of that work, and give people that chance to cross that threshold.
Yeah.
One of the things that it kind of fits. It's funny. I guess that's I'm part of something called Secure the Village, and it's a broader than just California, but it's oh, too much to the right. Darn it. It's and we're part of a workforce group, and we've got educators and employers, and we're all trying to figure out best practice and how to cross these different gaps. So, like we talked about earlier, somebody is needing they're looking for an entry level person, or even if security.
Yeah.
They've got all these requirements and all these problems. And it's like, how does that person that doesn't have their cross that threshold, or how does somebody with
how do they get there?
And some really good hands-on and capture the flag? But so how do we do that?
Yeah.
So is there a way to do that? I know that one of the things that we've done in some cases, and it seems to be a model some of the private industry education side is doing, is to sort of do, it's not really an internship, but the idea of, can we figure out some way through one side of the business to generate some work?
Yeah.
At least, checks that box.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I did some incident response. I did support on phone, or I did whatever. And as such, then my biggest bane.
There we go, the driver.
All right, but that distance that's the only way, right?
Would you like a tea?
Yeah, probably so. I guess that's the way we should.
Usually a good start. I'll even tear up. Yeah.
It's like it's so much closer on the screen for some reason than I think it would do in real. I am reading that right.
So you're pretty much just going straight. That flag to your left's a different hole.
Yeah, the stand over here.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah, I don't. That's way closer. I think I could chip to that, but this one, yeah, this is going to be fun and games. Ooh, at least get over all that. No. What I was kind of trying to do is shoot up the cart path. Worst case, it bounce up that way, right? There's one I remember from visiting, and I didn't get to play, like I said, that course, but also playing
Scotland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But playing the game in digital versions. There's one hole where you almost the quickest way once you power up your character in whatever game is you like almost shoot over this house. So this isn't that hole, they're not showing it, but there's a hole where you kind of, it's like a building there.
There's that little bridge, yeah.
You can hook over. How far are we?
Yeah, 262. Wait, this is the 5. That's your wedge.
That's the biggest?
Yeah, that's the next stop.
Or the hybrid, though. Well, not
there is a hybrid, of course.
But not from this.
Yeah.
I guess in reality.
Pretty tough read for the hybrid.
Yeah, it's a pretty tough bridge for anything. May need the wedge to get out of the mess here. I feel like I'm really standing in it. This is actually pretty cool. I've never actually played one this elaborate, guys. This is really nice.
Lovely.
Please get up.
You should get out of the mouth.
Oh, it's so thick.
And I'm also seeing a lot of need at the moment, especially in the security space, for people to have a heavy and good hands-on like data center background. Why do you think that is? And I suppose what is the importance of that for those who might not know what a data center even is from the start?
It's interesting to say that the place I was previous to back, third cybersecurity program I built, it was really fascinating because I've always, the things that are kind of the biggest you need in that, I have a natural inclination.
Yeah.
If that had been something, maybe I'd done that or at least dabbled. And but it applies to so many things. It's basically databases, statistics, and the programming, scripting, and technical knowledge to basically get meaningful information out of that.
Yeah.
And so is that, finding information in all of your sales data for a company, or in our space, is it figuring out the patterns and seeing how, things work? And so it is it's probably right up there with the, in the last, say, he played, programmers, cyber, and data science for the last half dozen years, probably been the 3 biggest.
Yeah, I mean, the data science market at the moment is absolutely booming. And, for other people out there, it's a great space to get into. That whole machine learning, data science is just an ever ongoing need, especially with the AI coming into play now that it is being huge. And I noticed, especially from the data center perspective, in terms of what people are asking for, it's linking to a lot to disaster recovery and SDIGs I see at the moment.
I know a guy who's fairly high up in one of the big social media companies that has lots of data centers. We've spoke together and done things at not spoke together, but been together at GSX. And he did a whole thing on data science. And data centers themselves are a great opportunity.
Yeah.
I mean, and everything's needed there. So you got the cyber people to maintain it. But those are some of the most secure, just like physical security.
Yeah.
And then, pen testers, the whole nine, it's like everything's like a little microcosm. And they end up popping up at the same places a lot of times. And, I know from the disaster recovery, a big part of that is that in a full disaster recovery situation where you need to be able to handle a big disaster, the cloud or data centers allow you to take that data and have it not here.
Oh,
So
okay.
if the earth, you don't want your data backed up if you're in California and a earthquake hits. It doesn't help you if it's across town.
Yeah.
It needs to be somewhere else. You don't need it across town in Miami or Houston or places that get hurricanes. And so ideally you want to spread that data. And since you can spin up from whether it's public cloud, private cloud, you can spin up VMs, you can spin up things in data centers all over the world. It allows you to have that ability to have that resilience so that you can bring things up and maybe not even go down when that happens at that facility.
And in the current market at the moment, when it comes to offshoring, how do you feel as someone who's been obviously in charge of companies and that, when it comes to offshoring from a cyber perspective? Do you like to keep everything, or are you a firm believer that it's important to have those people, onshore nearby, or do you think there's more risk in offshoring talent?
That's an interesting argument. I've done a lot of work and been involved with things that kind of had all the possibles there you mentioned. There are sometimes, and it's like so many things, even just that whole trade-off of security and convenience. How secure is your market? What are we talking about? Can you source that out or not? Can you put your public website in the cloud? Yeah. Do you put your super secret source code? Maybe you back it up securely, but maybe you don't just have it in GitHub publicly. So you got to make different decisions. And if it's going to be based on the industry, if you are already working with people all around the world, then sourcing to different places
makes no difference.
And so it's going to depend on like monitoring kinds of stuff. Probably doesn't matter. So like we've done customer support, we source programmers. I guess it's the title, but I constantly get bombed by people looking to, like I'm hiring a dozen programmers every day or something.
Yeah.
Do occasionally do that or have been involved in times in my life, but I do know, there's we've got on the other side of the world, wherever that may be. They're cheap. Oh, we got them in Latin America, so they're in the same time zones.
Yeah.
And you can find that in every service industry. And so each company's going to have to make it look like everything else. I think it's, most people and most industries, when we look, most companies, even smaller ones, we're all in a hybrid world. We don't have everything on-prem anymore. We don't have
exactly.
everything in the cloud. We end up and we look around, oh, well, we're using a cloud service here. And some people, I don't use cloud. Do you use Google Apps? Oh, yeah, you're using cloud.
From a startup perspective, I'll let you tee yourself off again there, 184 from the thing. From a startup perspective, if you was to start a company, all over again, are you going everyone on site or the new way of working of remote? What's your standpoint on that? I know it's a very, kind of heated debate on who works best in what ways.
Well,
Beauty.
I think, again, hybrid. I've been doing that a long time.
Yeah.
was an online program. So when I built that, I lived the COVID lifestyle for 5 years before COVID came. Just stayed at home, talking to students virtually. One of my team members now, I hadn't met. He'd been a student for so many years, then we stayed in touch, and I hired him. And he worked on projects. Some of my other staff had met him before I ever met him.
And from a learning perspective, for juniors, would you rather those people kind of be on site and nearby with the time, or have you felt it's just as effective, teaching online?
I think teaching online is an amazing thing. I've been doing that since very early. Taught Tulane's first ever online class after I got recruited to come back to Austin and teach. And helped with a .com there, and that was all about web education. And when we got locked down, because I'd done that so much, we, in less than a month, switched to a virtual program. But we didn't a lot of people just kind of threw it on. They didn't know. But we literally adapted for that media, and we shipped equipment so they could still tear a computer apart. And
do it either way.
And we adapted some of our labs because it wasn't as easy anymore to do that. So if you do things and you use the media correctly, but I would do a hybrid. I would probably have a base. I want an office. I want people to build.
Yeah, you want a hub spot that they can come into and bounce ideas.
Because that's where where the kind of even education I think is going. A classroom that I can walk around in and talk, and it's all mic'd and doesn't echo and it's all well. And then I can be in that classroom, or I can be in the classroom when I'm standing on the floor at DEF CON, or I'm doing some other thing. And then that mix of sometimes being there real and sometimes being there virtual, I think works for a company. I think it works for training. And it sort of, I guess, splits the debate
Yeah.
because both sides are right.
No, of course.
I always tell people, I guess that's just me. If you really want to know what the truth is, look at what both extremes are saying, and somewhere in the middle is probably the truth. Oh, I'm gonna get in that sand.
Just
Oh yes,
that's a tough bunker.
not enough lift. That's gonna be no fun to get
It's
out.
going to be a tough bunker.
Walls are terrible in this mine. That's where they punish you.
Yeah.
It looks like such an easy course.
Oh,
Big open, and then if you make a mistake,
nothing's easy and smooth in Scotland.
true. Well, sometimes the whiskey,
Oh,
scotch, and the whiskey.
not quite enough.
So, from your perspective, Harry, how are you finding the market, both local and national?
Well, yeah, it's definitely picking up. Like I said, I think over the last year and a half, and I think maybe 2022, obviously there was just a surge in salaries and the need, and it was a very candidate-driven market. And then with all the layoffs that had been happening over the last year and a half, it kind of brought people back to reality a little bit. But I think, salary expectations can be a little out of line, but I think there's an ever ongoing need with cyber at the moment, and it's not dying out. I think the main issue is at the moment for good candidates getting in play is just simply just speed of processes. And I understand everyone has their own hurdles internally to go over, but at the same time, if the candidates are doing 4-hour hacker rank tests for you and 5 rounds of panel interviews, the decisions and the speed should kind of reciprocate to them, just out of a bit of respect. And I think mainly just being transparent as well with where they went wrong, because obviously our aim is to get someone a job here, but if we don't get them the job, we want to guide them on where they went wrong, what they could be doing. I think that feedback is always so valuable from a
I'm
client.
glad you guys are doing that. Not every
Yeah,
does that. It's
because
just like
it's not about it's not about whether are you good for this job that we have right now. It's also a matter of what job are you good for in general, and how can we guide you to that, as well as what's going to be good for you. So having that feedback from the client, as well as when I send a job description to a candidate, if they don't like it, just tell me it's shit. Sorry for the curse, but yeah, but just tell me it's bad, and I can help you find something based upon that. So I think transparency from recruiter, client, and candidate is just the synergy that you need to make everything successful. Even if you don't find, even if it's not right and we haven't found something, then at least they've learned something, and so have I. I'm ever learning in this space. You can never.
I tell students and I tell people in tech and all of it. So
Yeah.
not just cyber.
Yeah.
But it's a lifelong. It truly is that cliche, lifelong learning.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the reasons I like it. One of the reasons I like to teach as well as do, is because it keeps me pushing and learning, so I don't look like a fool in front of these up and comers.
Yeah, and the same goes from the client. So if I hear from the candidate that they haven't had a great, interview for X, Y, and Z reasons, I kind of want to know feedback to the client and holes they might have in their process. So it's all important just for everyone, just to give a bit of feedback. And like I say, you can never be too transparent.
It's a very great. It's like the campfire. Everybody's leaving the place better than they found.
Yeah.
You're helping that company. You're helping the client. You're helping that candidate.
Exactly.
I think that's a great way, because that kind of feedback is a positive feedback loop.
Yeah, and just so a lot of clients can be out there saying, something's urgent or pressing for them, and it comes to it, and the candidate's been in process for 2-3 months. Then you do question, how urgent was it? And if it was urgent, why not just bring in a specialised contractor just to get the ball rolling and help? But I suppose it's all a matter of fit, right? Been dreading this one all day, Lee.
Well, I did see thought, how did you get back in the? Oh, we got close enough.
Yeah, we got close enough that they gave up on us, the sim.
That's fair. I think I'm finally figuring out the putting though. That's all right. Oh, go.
Stay straight.
Nice.
Just about.
That actually has got to be the best drive of the game, actually. So, I mean, in the fairway and if you want, sir.
So have you ever been a part of a horror recruitment process yourself and going for a position where you've just, ever been a situation where you've taken an interview and you thought, absolutely not, for internal reasons, how the interview was conducted? Is there any tips that you can give to other companies that, might have had those same issues?
I have not in a horror situation myself per se, but I heard of one. You see all these things out there in the space. I share them with students or mentees sometimes, but tips for how to answer questions and all that. And there's sometimes a little bit of a game people play, and to a degree, I'm cool with it. Like I tell students, be really meticulous when you look at job ads, because I have seen, this space is a pattern recognition space, attention to detail space.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I have seen somebody bury in there, in your cover letter, tell me your favorite color. And if you don't, you're gone.
Out.
I actually have my own rule, which is if you misspell blatantly stupid stuff, you're in the trash.
Yeah.
I'm a terrible speller. Spell checkers got me through college, but it's attention to detail. And if that document's not important enough,
Yeah.
and then I'm not going to hire you. But
if you can't take the time
be
to
careful with going overboard with that.
Yeah.
Because I was a mentee of mine, if you will, had a really horror experience. It was a great interview or two, and then this, and it looked like it was going to go great for this person, beyond be a great fit for the company. But they got to like the third round, and it became this one person that was going to be senior and boss did this kind of game, and it really was off-putting. And it was like, I couldn't even see, because I was told all about it after. I'm like, really? He asked you that? And it wasn't like it was inappropriate, like he wasn't trying to do anything like that, but it was just, he was trying to do that. I want to get in your head by asking some kind of riddle.
Yeah.
And then it was like not even related. It wasn't attention to detail. It wasn't really checking a real thing. It was, but I guess his argument would be, well, put him in an unusual situation, but it wasn't appropriate in a way, in that sense, not inappropriate, like, any other way.
One thing I always tell, candidates I have in process is, at the end of the interview, if you're expecting the company to be transparent, ask them what reservations do they have about you at the end, because I think there's always this thing of, obviously I appreciate people need to have a panel, go back and discuss, but you should know if you're the final decider, you should know during that interview if you do have reservations about someone, and give them that chance to rebuttal, because at the end of the day, you could easily miss out on someone very good just purely because questions misread to them, and obviously you want someone to be on point. But
your approach, it's funny because I actually think that both sides don't close the loop.
Yeah.
I tell students, a lot of times I see students and people out there, they click a bunch of buttons wherever it is, they apply to a ton of stuff, and then they never follow up, and it's this game, and it shouldn't be that way.
Yeah.
And I've personally been blessed by it, and I've helped people learn this and do it, is do a little research, and then do some things. And sometimes I'm teaching cyber people, so it's social engineering for good, their own good. But like I will call or tell people, call that employer and just say, I want to make sure I used your online system. I know, but did my resume get there?
Yeah. Did you get that?
And I'm interested. And if you write a cover letter, have a call to action. I know it's going to take a while at the end, for an interview, but if I haven't heard, I will follow up and do that.
Yeah.
And because those, I don't know, you tell me, but my experience, those are the things that if I have 100 resumes, and they're all very similar, and then there's also a couple people who've made the effort to call, or their cover letter, instead of saying to whom it may concern, I tell students my one little trick is don't ever use that.
Yeah, look up who it is.
On the website. Well, you may not, it's starting out, you may not know who your boss is going to be, but you're going to know his boss's boss.
Yeah.
The CTO or somebody's on that.
You can always find it on LinkedIn.
So put that, and the HR person's going to look at that and go, they all know the C-suite.
Yeah.
And now you've at least done that homework,
Yeah.
right? Going there and following up. Doing that follow-up, because you may want to apply next time. But if all you've done is click the button 3 times, you have not established a relationship with
It's repeating the same thing, which is the definition of insanity.
Exactly.
The same result. So yeah.
I knew I liked you. I love this, because I like the way you're bringing a holistic approach to it.
One of the main things too is I see a lot of people when I speak to someone about a job, like, okay, here's my resume. But again, there's no one size fits all to that. If you've read the JD, no JD is the same. There's all different skills in that. So if you can't take the extra 20 minutes to tweak it to how you want, or write a cover letter, like you say, then why should the company be considering you? I know you might have years and years of experience, but at the end of the day, they want someone to come in, do a job and be personalized for them. And if you can't take 10 minutes to be personal, then it's going to be a tough uphill battle from the start.
I think it's one thing that's funny about the market that sometimes people forget it's all automated and they're just doing it. But at the end of the day, I always tell people, it's a dance at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It has to be. It's economics. Businesses might want Superman for minimum wage, and we want to do nothing for 6 figures. The reality is somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, it's got to match up.
We've got to talk. We've got to have a good, if you really show that passion, you do those things, you start to network, you call, you establish, maybe you don't get that job, but when they have another one, hey, I remember her.
Later down the line, yeah. The power of LinkedIn and just the connections and being personable. I mean, it's the same thing that Austin is so good for, all of these meetups in tech, and that same as you host your own pool meetup and you come to one of ours, which is great. But it's a different way of networking, and you never know when that moment comes full circle again, and you know that kind of pays off for your own favour. So I think it's
So earlier we talked about tips for people getting in the industry. That getting involved is something for anybody in our industry at any time at any level because of the ancillaries there. So like, sure, I start off, you get hands-on, you do capture the flag, and you should get involved. Later on, you've already got a job. You should be involved.
Yeah.
Volunteer. Go to the community. Go to the all these wonderful meetups. The DEF CON groups and 512 and the Austin Hackers and B-Sides and Texas Cyber and all these conferences. Be part of that to stay current because it's lifelong learning, and you stay networking. And if you're starting out, it shows something that makes you separate. But even as a senior person, what can I get? I already know everybody. But no, you're going to stay current. You're going to maybe find a new opportunity or a new business idea or whatever because of that same system. So why not always be doing that, in my opinion? So I guess that's my plug for volunteerism and networking. Right?
Oh, could be your shot of the day.
Oh, it may get on the green. Oh, just a
little shy, little bump and run, and you'll be there.
Cool. Huh. Well, pool table in my house first, but
Yeah,
I do like games.
No, yeah.
Oh, it's still me.
There we are.
Oh, is that the wedge?
That is your wedge, yeah.
Okay, we've just been skipping those. That's all right. Have you ever played the little par 3 in town?
No, I have seen it. I know there's like Riverside, Jimmy Clay's obviously a lovely course as well. Oh, not lovely, I wouldn't go that far, but it's a nice course to play on for a good round. I think that's the great thing about Austin, that the weather's always constantly good, that it does allow you to do these events. And again, on the golf course, we've met some, great people, CTOs, some, and you get that time with them. And it's just different from being in a workplace perspective, because obviously when you're at work, you're there to work. So obviously the socializing aspect can be limited. Just braking slightly to the left, maybe.
Do I only get the line once? Hey, you missed
only when you're on the green.
Huh?
You're just off the green.
That's why.
Little Texas wedge.
I'll have to do it on my own.
Or you rock it.
Oh, rock it again. I think I had to compensate a little bit for being off. Now I need to really chip it back.
Yeah, this be a U-chip again. See if we can get a nice little smooth chip to round off with.
Well, I did say my short game was better, but I don't know if that's proving to be true. My dad will not be proud.
Is he on LinkedIn? Do we need to tag him?
No, he's retired. He just plays golf 4 days a week.
Yeah.
He was the past president of the Senior Golf Association.
Oh, well.
Senior Golf Association. He loves him some golf. Oh, that was close. Now that might have redeemed me.
Yep.
That hit the flag falling in, but not bad.
Yeah, no, amazing shot. Well, look, Lee, I think our time's nearly up. It's been an absolute pleasure having you here.
Distinct pleasure.
Excited to go to one of the other pool meetups and meet you down there.
First of next month.
First of next month sounds like a plan to me. Need to redeem myself for some of these poor golf skills, but been a pleasure having you here.
I'm gonna have to play some pool tonight, actually, just to make up for this.
Yeah, we might have to go to the office and have a quick rebuttal match there. Actually, a bit of a vengeance match going on. Sounds like a perfect idea to me, Lee. Well, thanks again, and I hope to see you soon.